Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this webinar on Uzbekistan, and also this is a pre-briefing for the mission that is being organized in November. My name is Dorit Salas, and I'm the director of the Joint Chamber of Commerce, which is the leading private sector business organization in Switzerland that promotes Swiss trade and investment in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the South Caucasus. There are 13 companies in our portfolio, and Uzbekistan is one of the most important. In 2019, we launched the JCC Uzbekistan chapter and signed an MOU with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Uzbekistan. We have, throughout the last 5 years, organized regular events to promote business for Swiss companies in Uzbekistan, and are delighted to partner today with our valued member, Lindemann Law, on their superb initiative to organize a mission to Uzbekistan. This is for me the ideal scenario when a member of our Chamber of Commerce takes the initiative, and we are here to support them in every way possible. A lot of the partners that have been gathered and the speakers, we have been able to facilitate through our activities, so it's a perfect arrangement of so-called synergies. Let me just say that today there is growing awareness about Uzbekistan and Switzerland. This was really, I would say, catalyzed by the reforms that were introduced by President Mirziyoyev several years ago, but today it is more relevant than ever. First, the corona pandemic, and now the war in Ukraine has seen disruption to supply chains, energy resources, and transportation flows. Global business is reorienting itself and looking for new options to source energy, markets to nearshore operations, and move cargo between Asian and European markets. In the context of these shifts, Uzbekistan presents a great option because of its resources and also of its position. Today, we will explore these features and the opportunities they present in further detail. And this is just to give you, how shall I say, a taste of what you can expect at the mission, during the mission in Tashkent, in November of this year. So I want to wish you a very interesting event. I want to thank Lindemann Law and all the other partners. And I wish you a very interesting webinar. And now it gives me a great deal of pleasure to ask Michael Kuhn, our dear friend and partner from Switzerland Global Enterprise, to say a word of welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Dorit. Well, what can I say after those words of Dorit? She has said almost everything, but let me thank you first for giving me the opportunity to welcome you all also to this webinar about Uzbekistan. I'd like to thank the organizers of Lindemann Law for their great efforts to explore new business potential for Swiss companies in Uzbekistan. Our organization, Switzerland Global Enterprise, is the Swiss Trade and Invest Promotion Agency, and we support Swiss SMEs in their international business worldwide, together with our local representatives in 31 countries. Myself, I am responsible, among many others, for the Central Asian markets. In Central Asia, we have a so-called trade point, Kazakhstan, based at the Swiss Embassy in Nur-Sultan. Now, as Dorit mentioned, we have all witnessed the changes in Uzbekistan over the past couple of years, and I'm convinced that there is further business opportunities also for Swiss companies. In this regard, of course, I welcome the initiative of Lindemann Law to organize this business mission in November, and now also this preparatory webinar about this interesting market. This is always the best way to further explore a potential new market when you get the chance to travel there and have a program organized by specialists locally. So with this, I hand over the microphone back to Alexander. Thank you again for organizing and having us as partner, and I wish you all a very interesting webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My turn is actually just to hand over directly the microphone to my learned partner in the law firm and learned friend, Dr. Jakob Schaad, together with whom we are going to organize this business trip and together with whom we have organized this webinar. Jakob.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexander, Dorrit, and Michael for your welcoming words. I am Jakob Schaad, as Alexander said, and I'm a partner in Lindemann Law. And I am just as optimistic about Uzbekistan as Michael and Dorrit are. I was already before, but I also think that things are coming more into focus now. And I think that's a great opportunity for you, dear participants in this webinar, to explore possibilities for you in Central Asia and to continue the tradition of doing global business, which is a Swiss tradition since the 19th century. So the first panel, I'm going to start the first panel right away. I have very, very learned and interesting participants here. And we are going to have first two brief introductions, presentations of Mr. Eldor Tulyakov and Mr. Eric Livni about first the reform program, the ambitious reform program that Uzbekistan is doing, and then about the economic impact of the reform program, but also the latest economic developments. Let me just briefly introduce the two panel participants. Eldor Tulyakov is the executive director of the Development Strategy Center, which is an Uzbek think tank that has, by presidential decree, the task to develop and implement the reform program, the economic reform program and development program that Uzbekistan is now developing and implementing since 5 years. Mr. Tulyakov has been a member of the Uzbek parliament before, and he has been has been active in influential committees of the parliament. He is, by profession, he's a lawyer, but also has a degree in finance from the Institute for Law and Finance at the University of Frankfurt. That is Eldor Tulyakov. I'm very pleased to have you here today. And then we have Eric Livni. He is the regional lead economist for Central Asia of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. He is an economist and political scientist by background, and has a very varied career, also building up an advisory center that is called the Telenomics Policy Advisors, which is Georgia-based, which also provided really hands-on economic policy advice. So we have a very interesting panel. And Eldor, I would like to give you the floor right away. And I'm very pleased to have you here and to see firsthand what the program is.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jakob, for a brief introduction. And I would also like to thank Lindemann Law for organizing this wonderful event. And I am very much pleased for the participants' interest in this event. And I would like to thank them all also for this. And I would also like to thank our partner, EBRD team, for their effort to talk about Uzbekistan and this wonderful event. Thank you. And as you mentioned, I would like to speak very briefly about the upcoming reforms of Uzbekistan based on the development strategy of New Uzbekistan. Hope you can see my slides. There are 7 priorities.
We can see them, thank you.
Thank you. There are 7 priority areas for Uzbekistan to carry out its reforms. As you can see, it's first is construction of state construction, and the second one is rule of law. Third one is economy. I believe these are the main three directions that is most relevant for this our event, and I'm more than happy to share the detailed slides of about the reforms of Uzbekistan in the chat of this event. And now, dear participants of the event, to start with, I should mention that Uzbekistan identified 100 goals to carry out its reforms. And the good thing is now people can assess directly whether or not we have achieved these goals. And so which means Uzbekistan has been carrying out the openness and transparency reform, and the other positive thing is that people has established a tight dialogue with the state and its officials, which means there is always a feedback in between people, including investors, including huge corporations, and including ordinary people, on what else state should do and how the state should carry out its reforms. And this is a good thing. And another example of openness is that now if a problem arises somewhere in the region, because of the openness of mass media, now this big problem in a very remote area becomes public very rapidly. So that's why openness has reached even the rural areas of the country. This is a good thing, because now businesses, citizens are using this opportunity to raise their issues just in case if someone does not react. I mean, an official does not react towards a problem to resolve their issues. And this will be continued, these reforms in this new strategy. And as you can see, goal number 5 says that there sets a priority to introduce of a compact and professional, fair, high-performance public administration system, which means the state is willing to create conditions so that the issues, if someone raises in a rural area, should be resolved over there. Because in the past, they were supposed to bring this issue up to the region or up to the government. So now that's why the state is carrying out decentralization reform and giving more authorities to the regions themselves, so that if there is a problem or if there is an issue that needs to be solved, they do it themselves very urgently. And if they cannot, of course, the government will intervene to resolve those issues. Another priority area in this is that the state is willing to strengthen the responsibility and accountability of state officials by introduction more accountability schemes, like now state officials, it doesn't matter which level they are, now they are reporting to the public very openly on their activities. And by this goal, state is willing to increase the efficiency of this reporting and accountability schemes. The goal number 9, which I believe is very much relevant to our topic today, is state is willing to develop an e-government system and increase the level of, as you can see, the share of e-government services up to 100%, because this is a very new institution for Uzbekistan to get the state, for example, service, registration of a business entity or paying a tax or getting a certain document from a state agency. People used to go to their offices physically, but now they can get all this information, I mean, most of it online, and the state is willing to increase this level up to 100% by, for example, introducing mobile applications, Face ID, mobile ID verifications. This will be a very convenient for both civil society and the business. The next I want to mention is that state by goal 13, as you can see, is willing to strengthen the guarantees of inviolability of the property, private property, because this has been under issue for a while. And that's why the state in its new strategy is identifying that private property protection will be a top level priority in the second direction, which is a rule of law section. Here I have identified the main goals that the state is willing to carry out. The next in this direction is that, of course, I should mention that state is willing to introduce the state is willing to eliminate bureaucratic hurdles and barriers to justice. And one of them, as you can see, introduce the principle of single window into the judicial system, which means a businessman or a ordinary person, if they want to bring the issue to the court, then of course they can bring it to any court of the country. It doesn't matter which type of court it is, whether it's a civil court or an economic court. And the third direction is liberalization of the economy. And the participants of the event here, I have identified some of the main priorities that the state is willing to carry out. One of them is liberalization of the energy resources and natural gas markets by introducing social consumption norms, because government thinks that currently energy price is very low for the society. That's why it's willing to introduce a social norm, and the rest, the over limit, will be calculated and charged based on market prices. And that's how the government is willing to ensure fairness in allocation of the energy resources. Another priority is ensuring an uninterrupted supply of oil and gas products to the economy and the population. Because of the reforms, because of the constructions happening all over Uzbekistan, this has become a very much priority to ensure an uninterrupted supply, because the demand is raising day by day. That's why, as you can see, there are some other priorities, including production of 2 billion worth of products in the chemical industry through, as you can see, the development of the chemical and gas chemical industries, and the increase in the rate of natural gas processing from 8% currently up to 20%. The next important, what I want to say is some export priorities of Uzbekistan. For example, during these upcoming 4 or 5 years, the state is willing to increase the volume of production by 1.4 times, as you can see, exports by 2 times of the automotive industry. And another important statistic is increasing the production of textile products by 2 times. So these are some very important, I believe, export targets. Another important issue I want to mention is the introduction of high-value products in the electrical industry by 2 times that Uzbekistan is setting as a priority, and exports by 3 times. Moreover, Uzbekistan is setting a priority to increase the energy efficiency of the economy by 20%. So it's willing to introduce more green economy, more technologies of this type. Additionally, state is willing to increase electricity generation by an additional 30 billion kilowatt hours, as you can see, by 2026, and is setting a limit to increase it up to 100 billion kilowatt hours. In the meantime, the state is also willing to save about 3 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year by introduction of green economy technologies. So by introduction of these technologies is about to save, as you can see, 3 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Another important area that I would like you to pay attention is it's willing to take measures to attract 120 billion of investment, out of which, as you can see, including 70 billion in foreign investment. So this is a high priority, to attract more investment, and accordingly, the state has been carrying out sophisticated reforms, be it institutional, be it legislative, be it in foreign relations, be it openness, foreign policy, transparency. So to attract this much investment, of course, you know well what kind of reforms we need to carry out, which is not limited with economic, but as I mentioned earlier, with political change in general. So, of course, it's paying much attention to develop the public-private partnerships. As you can see, there is a goal to attract 14 billion in public-private partnership. That's why Uzbekistan's government is setting preferential rates for those who will conclude these public-private partnership agreements with the country, including energy preferences, tax preferences, and other benefits that is specific towards the product. Then, of course, to overcome the shadow economy is another priority. That's why, as you can see, the state is willing to increase stock market turnover. This is one of the means to overcome this issue, because, as you can see, the current turnover is $200 million, and the state is setting a priority to increase it to $7 billion within these upcoming 5 years. And privatization of large enterprises, including banks, as you can see, is a priority. And so increasing the share of the private sector in banks' assets up to 60% is a priority in the current strategy of Uzbekistan. That's why Uzbekistan's government has been dealing negotiating with its partners, especially foreign investors, to sell its banks, because foreign investors have a priority in obtaining banks. And some other facts is that elevating the share of the private sector in exports up to 60% is another goal. Increasing the number of exporting enterprises is another goal. Of course, it needs more to do to increase the current number, which is 6,500 up to 15,000. We need for that, decent investors with experience. Foreign markets network is very much important. Another important issue that I would like you to pay attention is reducing the tax burden is a priority in the strategy, as you can see, on businesses by 2026 from 27.5% up to 25% of GDP. So this is a very good priority for the country to make the investment environment even more friendly. And as for the energy policy priorities, I should mention that Uzbekistan is identified several priorities, including reducing energy consumption and resource intensity of the economy, the widespread introduction of energy saving and green eco-friendly technologies, stimulating increased use of renewable energy, increasing productivity in the economy, and transition to a green economy. For that, the state is planning to build about 10 gigawatts of new renewable energy facilities. To achieve these targets, including 5 gigawatts of solar, 3 gigawatts of wind, and almost 2 gigawatts of hydroelectric power plants. Well, in general, this is very briefly what I wanted to mention. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Eldor, for this very interesting introduction. I think what you said about the the endeavors that Uzbekistan has in the renewable energies will certainly be interesting for many in our audience. I do have a few questions, but I think we'll discuss that later on in the panel. I actually thought you have very ambitious goals that you have for exports and so on. How are we going to get there? And that is probably an interesting question to address.
Jakob, maybe
maybe
one thing that I would like to add is that all the participants in this conference, all our potential delegates, you are very welcome to ask questions in the Q&A session. So already prepare your questions, because there, as Jakob, as you said, there will be a Q&A session right after the next presentation.
Right. So I'm going to give the floor now to Eric, and I'm going to put the spotlight on Eric Livni, because the question of, we have heard all these ambitious reform program goals, and many things have been done, we know that, Eldor. And then the question is, what is the impact? What is happening economically? Can you see that, Eric? And then, of course, there are many other questions too. I mean, it hasn't been easy economically, given first the pandemic and then the drastic change in the geopolitical situation for a country that does have quite tight ties, or not so tight, actually, as you will show, Eric, with Russia. So, Eric, I would like to give you the floor to speak.
Thank you, Jacob. I will not go straight into the present. I will start with a few pictures showing you what kind of country we're talking about. It's a country with a long history, and let us proceed. So the history of this country, as you are full aware, I'm sure, has something, maybe a lot, to do with the fact that it's a major part of the Silk Road, which was functional up until the middle of the 15th century. And thanks to this trade flows that were going through Central Asia and ancient Uzbek cities, there is a very strong local culture, which is highly visible. So if you visit Samarkand, for example, one of the highlights, a jewel of Central Asia, you can of course see how wealthy this country was. The magnificence of the architecture of the time is really striking. And it's not just Samarkand. You travel further west on the Silk Road, you see this beautiful Khiva, part of Khwarezm region. It's not just architecture, also there is a tradition of learning, there is a tradition of intellectual tradition. Ibn Sina, the father of modern medicine, was born in Bukhara, another city on the Silk Road of Uzbekistan. Now, of course, what happened later was not so pleasant. Central Asia became largely irrelevant after the Ottomans captured Constantinople, and the whole region disintegrated, I would say, into small units. Trade was no longer possible, and all the beautiful cities that I showed you in pictures, they fell into decay. But in the 1800s, and essentially towards the second half of the 19th century, Central Asia again becomes interesting. It becomes the stage for the so-called Great Game, imperial games between the Russian Empire at the time and the British Empire. They fought for control over Central Asia. The Brits were fearing that Russia may want to reach India. And with the picture here, I saw it firsthand in the Russian Museum of St. Petersburg, showing you the siege of Samarkand by the Russian army, 1868. Now, later, of course, the country went through a rather complicated process of Soviet-style development, urbanization, industrialization, and indeed very painful collectivization. The picture here shows, in fact, this collectivization in practice. The poor peasants collectivizing the richer guys in the villages. Now, despite all these developments and the forceful development, Soviet style, traditions are still very much alive in Uzbekistan. So the picture here shows you a typical Uzbek bazaar. This morning I visited one, and it's as beautiful as it is in this picture. And this is really something about this culture, that they are traders by almost genetically, but of course not. And they know how to sell, how to very aesthetically present their merchandise on the shelves. And another very important aspect of Uzbek tradition is how they're organized at the local level. This is something I haven't observed anywhere else. Maybe Switzerland has something similar, but Uzbek communities are incredibly well organized. It's not state-driven. It's very bottom-up, and the people take care of their environment. They take care of their neighborhoods. They, as you can see here, they plant trees. They clean it up. And this very nuclear structure of the society, I think, plays a very important role in how the economy operates in this country. So far, so good. I mean, I just wanted to give you a little bit of flavor of this country. We now move to the present day situation in Uzbekistan. So let us take a look at Uzbekistan really take 1 minute. So first of all, let's look at the population size here. So it's the largest in Central Asia. It's 35, 36 million. It has tremendous natural resources. Some of them are already being explored. Others are yet to be explored. So there's a lot of potential here, from gold to uranium, you name it. And the country is quite open to foreigners. It shows here in how easy it is to travel. You know, I am Israeli. I can come and work here for 30 days without any restrictions, but getting an annual visa is also not a problem. It's reasonably low on taxation, and especially nowadays, certain sectors are given even more priority. So, for example, IT investors, ICT investors, they get an even better deal. So they would have only personal income tax to pay on their salary, on the salaries of their employees, and not 12, but 5%. So this is fantastic for incoming FDI into the ICT sector. If anybody on this webinar is in the ICT sector, you are most welcome to Uzbekistan. Okay, now this is an economy of about 70 billion dollars. So it's a sizable market. It's growing fast. Last year, 7.4%. So the market is large. It's growing. So you can do business even in the domestic market. Okay, now let us take a look at again the reforms shown on the timeline. Of course, I'm not going to list all of them. We've heard from the previous speaker a lot of detail. One thing I would like to emphasize here is that even though we start counting Uzbek reforms in February 17, this is not really the starting point of reforms. You know, the previous regime, if you wish, of President Karimov, now it's easy to forget, but I remember when I was studying transition in the 1990s or early 2000s, at the time, Uzbekistan was considered to be an economic miracle. Uzbekistan at the time, it didn't do the kinds of reforms that everybody else did, like Russia or Ukraine for that matter. But as a result, it didn't collapse. Uzbekistan did not collapse. It didn't deindustrialize. It didn't lose its industrial manufacturing capacity as many other transition countries did. It remained closed. It remained very illiberal, but it maintained its industrial capacity. And I think this is serving Uzbekistan today quite well. And I will come back to this in a bit. And the same applies to agriculture. Whereas most countries privatize land in a very stupid manner, dividing it in very small pieces of land, giving it to smallholders in a way that they absolutely cannot operate. You know, you cannot operate a modern farm on 1 hectare of land, especially if there's no services and infrastructure to support you. So this land is, you know, whenever it's distributed in such a way, and I've seen this in Georgia, for example, it ends up being wasted. You know, the potential that you have in agricultural land cannot be used unless you have cooperation or you have scale. So I would credit President Karimov for not doing some of the stupid things, some of the rushed things that other countries did in the early 90s. Okay, but of course, by February, or by 2017, what Uzbekistan had to do and did very well was open up and liberalize. And this is what the thrust of reforms has been since that time. It started with the foreign currency, liberalizing foreign trade. And now, as we heard, it's all about business climate, legal reform, property rights, transparency, privatization to a large extent. So this is what we're doing now. But again, I would like to emphasize that the starting point was the starting point of Uzbekistan in 2017 was not a bad one. I will not talk about EBRD strategy in Uzbekistan. I'll leave this to Alkis, who will be speaking to you in the next session. One thing about Uzbekistan is that this is fairly diversified economy. And because it is diversified, it is also one of the most resilient in Central Asia. And I'm talking about crises such as the pandemic and maybe now the war in Ukraine. So Uzbekistan is surprisingly or not, is quite resilient. So it didn't go into a recession in 2020, for example. So it maintained growth at not a very high rate, but still 1.6%. And then it recovered very nicely in 2021, grew by 7.4%. Well, we have forecasted earlier in the year 4% growth in 2022. I can assure you, and I think you will very soon see all IFIs updating the numbers, because I think it's not going to be 4, it can be 5, it can be 6, it can be almost as good as 2021. Now, the economy, when I say it's diversified, it's not just gas, even though gas is being produced in Uzbekistan, or it's not just cotton, even though Uzbekistan is famous for its very high quality cotton. So when you look at the industrial output of the country, it's actually significant. It's 30% of GDP in 2021, and it was a strong driver of growth. So it's a very dynamic sector. We see a lot of investment, including investment that we are financing ourselves. Another important factor is gold. Uzbekistan has tremendous deposits of gold, and this is a fantastic thing to have when you have crisis after crisis, because when the dollar goes down, when the economies around the world go down, the price of gold goes up. And so Uzbekistan has this amazing opportunity to use gold as a hedge. And right now, I will show you, we are in a sort of emergency situation. Price of gold is high, and Uzbekistan is selling gold. It hasn't been selling in the very beginning of the year, but now it is selling. And last point on diversification, it's not just about products, it's also about export markets. Not all the eggs are in the same basket here, even though Russia and China, as one could expect, are the largest trade partners, their respective shares are fairly modest. Russia is 12%, China is 15%. There used to be a lot of gas. So it's not like Uzbekistan depends on any particular market for its development. And this is very important. And by the way, it's in this way, Uzbekistan stands out compared to other Central Asian neighbors.
Eric,
now, yep.
Can you please, I don't know how long you will still take, but so that we have still a few little time to for questions, can you how long?
Look, I can take as long as you would like me to take.
Okay. There's so many very interesting things that you're talking about. So
yeah. Okay. I mean,
2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. Okay. I will try to conclude in 2 minutes. So I will not talk about growth this year. I'll skip this slide. Let's see what else there is. Investment, you can see the chart on the right, indeed has been rising this year. And this bar on the right is surprising, but there's a 40% increase, probably because of a low base, but I haven't had the chance to look at it. Something else that happened this year, we see a very significant increase in money transfers to Uzbekistan, remittances. And this is despite the fact that early on when the war started, Uzbekistan has a lot of workers in Russia. We thought that remittances might collapse. In fact, they grew by 61%. Some of it may be related to Russians and Belarusians opening accounts in Uzbekistan and transferring money here. Maybe I promised to show you what happened to exports and gold exports in particular. So here at the bottom, you see exports grew in the first quarter by more than doubled, essentially, 138%. And gold is a very big part of it. It's 51% of total exports. Some of it may be going to Switzerland. I don't know. Debt did increase, but it's still, you can see in comparison to other Central Asian countries, it's not at a very high level, so it's perfectly sustainable. But given that borrowing costs are growing now all over the world, as the Fed and other central banks are raising the policy rate, so we will see a little bit more burden here. At the same time, Uzbekistan has very nice foreign exchange reserves, one of the largest in the region. Even though Kazakhstan has a larger GDP, Uzbekistan has very comparable reserves. Again, a lot of it is gold, not surprisingly. The dependence on Russia. So this is a slide showing you where Uzbekistan is relative to Russia. We look at several things here. Remittances is one. Exports to Russia, exports to the European Union through Russia is another channel. And imports from Russia and FDI from Russia, this is the last 5 items. So when you compare to other countries, first of all, you see that none of the bars above Uzbekistan here on the right are super high. This means that even though, let's say, the country is receiving remittances from Russia, they are not at a critical level. So if something happens, again, Uzbekistan can survive. But as I told you, remittances are not dropping. In fact, they're even increasing. So this is good. And on all other potential dependencies, again, not terribly strong. I'll skip this slide. There are 3 more slides. I'll try to go the most important point. This is like a summary for you, if you wish. So indeed, this is the largest consumer market, or maybe not larger than Kazakhstan yet, but it will become the largest consumer market in Central Asia. It is certainly, historically, any way you look at it, it's a major regional hub. It's a hub for trade, it's a hub for logistics. If there is still some investment to be made in railways and roads, maybe improving the software, the soft infrastructure, but definitely a very central piece of Central Asian puzzle. It's a very well endowed and diversified economy. I would like to praise very, very strongly the quality of the labor force in Uzbekistan. Unlike some of its neighboring countries, Uzbekistan can really be proud of the quality of its workers, disciplined. They know trade, they know many, they have traditional skills, for example, in arts and crafts. They know how to operate production lines. So it has all the qualities you want in a labor force, almost like Germany or Switzerland, even though it's Central Asia. Okay, let me, one more slides quickly, one more. So as I said earlier, it didn't go through deindustrialization following the USSR's collapse, and so even added to its manufacturing capacity. So just as an example, we may criticize it, but in fact, Uzbekistan is unique in having a full-fledged automotive industry, again, protected heavily by the government, but it exists. And that has very important implications for technological capabilities in the country. The banks are yet to be privatized, which is in fact an opportunity for those willing to invest in the financial sector. I would like to emphasize once again the fact that agriculture is a fantastic area here. It's very high quality of product, and also it hasn't been fragmented in ways that other countries did, which I think is a crime. So here we have some very good investors operating in the agricultural sector. We are ourselves supporting one called Indorama, not one, we work with more, but it's one of the largest. And in cotton specifically, now that the boycott of Uzbek cotton has ended, there's no more forced labor, no more child labor. So there is many opportunities here in cotton, in textile, in horticulture, food processing. I'm not talking about tourism, but you can understand that tourism, energy, transport, and logistics, all these sectors have tremendous potential. And the future of Uzbekistan, in my opinion, is absolutely bright. And when I say that Uzbekistan is Uzbekistan a Central Asian tiger, it's a hypothetical. I believe it is. So with this, let me conclude. Thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Eric. First, I would like to start by apologizing because I said, or I wrote in my invitation. Let me see here. There you go. I said in my that the last 5 years. So obviously that's wrong. Uzbekistan has been reforming before. It's true. I've been in contact with Uzbekistan before, and so I would like to apologize. It's true, of course. The basis was already there, and that's yeah. So that is certainly impressive. The other thing is that remittances, that is quite surprising from you, Eric, for me, Eric, and also the developments, the incredible growth that was probably a combination of the reforms that Eldor Tulyakov presented to us and those incredible workforce in Central Asia. Now, I have a question from the audience that I'd like to give Jean-Paul, if that's possible. I'd like to give you the floor. Are you there, Jean-Paul?
I'm here.
Yeah, you had two questions actually. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, so first the privatizations. I mean, how fast it goes. I mean, because it's important now for this country. I am myself honorary consul of Kazakhstan, and I saw how long it was in Kazakhstan for the privatizations. I mean, every year they were promising to come, but it was never coming. And we were always asking, I mean, for the Swiss financial community. So this is one question. And the second question is looking to the agriculture. Is Uzbekistan growing hazelnuts and almonds?
Thank you, Jean-Paul. Is Eldor or Eric, would you like to? Eric, do you know anything about that? Can you answer that question?
I can answer the question about privatization, maybe also nuts. So Eldor, of course, can add on privatization. The answer is it doesn't go fast. It certainly, they take this privatization process very carefully. They had very good experience with, for example, Coca-Cola, what they consider to be a great experience. And the reason they think this was a success is because they actually took time. They hired, in this particular case, it was Rothschild's investment, and they hired them as a privatization advisors to basically, go through the accounting system and all that, and make sure that the company is sellable. Now, at the end of the day, the company was sold for a good price, and this is how they see the process going forward. For them, as I heard the Minister of Finance speaking about a year ago, we are not in a rush to sell. We are in a rush to prepare companies for privatization. And it doesn't mean necessarily privatization of the full, 100%. It can be an IPO. And I think that for the strategic assets, for example, for the gold mining companies, for some of the other major companies, what they have in mind is indeed IPO of 15, 20, 25%, maintaining in the state's hands the controlling stake. What they do sell quickly through the state asset management agency, they sell real estate that is for historical reasons has been in state ownership, like hotels. There's still some major hotels in Tashkent are still in state ownership. Some other pieces of land or buildings that the state doesn't want to keep on its books. So these are sold fairly quickly and hopefully in a transparent manner. But yeah, this is on the privatization. Nuts and hazelnuts, I think very quickly, Uzbekistan has everything. And it has, the difference. Absolutely, yeah. It's nuts and it's any kind of horticulture you will find here. They have different soil and climate conditions in different parts of the country. So everything you will find here and in amazing quality.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. Alexander is already looking at me.
How do you see it?
So I've used a little bit too much time. So thank you very much, Eldor and Eric. I would still have so many questions about the incredible young workforce and about the reform program.
Let's maybe
really have to hand over.
Alkes, you have a question I saw, right?
Oh,
and
yes, I'm going to give you
have
the
a question
floor.
in the public health sector in place. Let's quickly take those two questions, maybe.
Yes, I'm just trying to.
Eldor, can you say something on those two questions?
I agree with Eric. He has mentioned most of the important things. I have nothing to add so far.
Alkes, what was your question?
Yeah, Alkes, yes.
Yeah, it's not a question. Is from my role. But Eric said it all. Just to highlight that in the privatization area, there is some significant progress. Let's say preparing, right now in the banking sector. As the authorities have realized that the need to lower down this 84% participation or ownership of banking assets by the state. So Ipoteka Bank is a systemic bank, state-owned bank, has made significant progress in privatization very recently, and there are other banks, another couple of banks, systemic, number 2 and number 3 in Uzbekistan, that we are working on. Apart from that, there are certain, let's call them assets, these companies in the chemical industry, construction materials, that are currently under privatization under the auspices of the State Asset Management Agency, with a number of reliable, partners in the process for transparency and good procedures, led by the IFC and professional firms like KPMG, Ernst & Young, that are working on in these areas. So just to paint the picture that although there is not much to announce at the moment, there is a lot to be announced very shortly. Thank you.
Can someone, Eric or Eldor, can you say something on the public health system and on the
yes, exactly
from
the audience?
I mean, we know some companies organizing the import of foreign pharmaceuticals, but yeah, can someone take just a quick answer, because it's very important for me to really take the questions from the audience.
Eldor, please. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I just read the public health system is a very important sphere for Uzbekistan. As if you look at the target goals, it's willing to increase the share of the private sector in health industry up to 25%. For that, Uzbekistan has been introducing benefits, just like I mentioned earlier, including these special tariff rates for bringing technologies from abroad to Uzbekistan. Then, of course, bringing foreign experience to Uzbekistan is very much welcome. Moreover, increasing the share of medicines and medical devices produced in the country up to 80% is also set as a goal, which means localization is a priority. Because we have seen how hard it was to bring some products from abroad when it was closed during the pandemic. Then, well, these are the main statistics that I have currently with me.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I would like to invite Ernst Fehrenbach, who just asked this question, to get in touch with me after this, or I do it myself, because we have some context with some.
I have another, I have another question from
context regarding pharmaceuticals. So you have another question?
I have another question from Mr. Kasim Hojayev. Can I give you the floor, please? You should be able to see us now, and we should be able to see. I can't see you now. Oh, I can't see you anymore now. Where is he?
So I saw him.
Hi, good afternoon.
Ah, here he is. There you go. Thank you very much. You have the question.
I'm Uzbek Kasim Hojayev. I'm the Director of Investment Promotion Agency of Uzbekistan.
Oh, great. Nice to have you here.
The question regarding the pharmaceuticals.
Oh.
Yes, we are introducing from 2023 compulsory health insurance, number one. Number two, we have created a full service from the research all the way to manufacturing. Recently, there were passed few government decrees. Number two. Number three, the amount of buying, so-called offtake, increased from 43 billion to 1.3 trillion. This year, it's increasing further. If they need any questions regarding pharmaceuticals, we will be happy to answer, or any other questions regarding investments. Thank you.
Thank you, that's great. So let's.
And we can put you in contact, of course. Any participant we can put you in contact with Uzbek if there are any questions there. So I think Alexander, I think it's high time that I give the floor to you for the second example on
I think it's high time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the participants. Thanks for the presenters, Eric and Elder. It was wonderful to have you on my panel.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Genau. I would like to, now to welcome you once more and to the second topic. We would like to specifically now focus on the energy sector, because this is one of the most promising sector also for foreign and for Swiss entrepreneurs. When they come into the country, we heard from the presentation that there are high goals, and there's a lot of sun, wind, and other favorable factors. So that's why we chose this topic. And we have one of our partners on the ground in Tashkent is Uzbek. And we have Salahuddin, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Salahuddin here with us. He is from this very influential government agency. It's actually a state agency, together with an association that has all the members in the technical area. And this agency has a regulatory function, and they support their members. So if our delegates are putting up their business in Uzbekistan, they will get really serious and hands-on help from Salahuddin and his team, and they are also responsible for the business development goals. So I think we have just the right man here today. So Salahuddin, the floor is yours, and I already announced my dear friend Alkis. He's gonna then wrap up and take on some real life cases and some case studies. And I would like to invite the two of you, please, can you both stick to around 10 minutes? Because after this, we will also take some questions and then take around 5 minutes also about our mission.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, dear friends from Switzerland. Let me, my name is Jakob Salahuddin. I am a head of international department, Uzbekistan Association for Electrotechnic Industries. In this, I'll try to speak. I'll try to speak about renewable energy projects in Uzbekistan. Under the presidency of His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, Uzbekistan is introducing wide-range economic, judicial, social reforms over the past 5 years. Uzbekistan is among the fast-growing nations, both in terms of demography and economic opportunities. in just last 30 years, population rose from 20 million to 35 million people, or 75%. It's just in last 30 years. Under the 65% of population is under the 30 years old. These represent both challenges and opportunities as well. More population means more energy consumption. So despite COVID-related economic slowdown last year's, electricity demand in the country has shown resilient growth. So that's why the government of Uzbekistan is pursuing very ambitious renewable energy deployment targets. So this would be starting from the last year, 2021. We have a goal. Government announced a goal of reaching 7 gigawatt of solar power plants, and by 2030s, and 5 gigawatt of the wind generation projects. So since last year, government, the Uzbekistan Minister of Energy has already played several bids for these projects, announced some winning companies. So most active was among them was Masdar from the UAE. So they secured projects of almost 1 gigawatt of solar power and 500 megawatt of wind farms so far. So if you can see from this slide, right now we have 11 projects in Uzbekistan, whole in Uzbekistan, 11 projects which is under construction, and one or two of them has been completed already. Total project capacity is at over 2 gigawatt, and total cost of the projects is $1.7 billion US. So target is until 2030, the number of projects should be 30 units. It's an average, and then overall solar energy should be 7 gigawatts of the power capacity. The next, in this slide, you can see the wind energy program. Number of projects right now is 7. It's under construction. Total project capacity is 3,500 megawatt. And then total cost of the projects $4.1 billion US. And the target of construction targets for the construction of wind farms is by 2030 is 15, average 15. So half of them is being built right now, is under construction, and the Minister of Energy is playing the bids to announce the winning companies. So this is what is going on with the construction of the power and the wind, solar power and wind power, the farms, and these projects present to our association, to our sector, electrotechnic industry sector, great opportunities to grow and expand. As we know, 45% of these renewable energy construction projects consist of electrotechnics and electronic products. These falls into the category of the sector is doing. Taking advantage of this moment, our association and our member, the companies, is committed to introduce and develop manufacturing sites and factories of wind towers, solar panels, inverters, and others here in Uzbekistan. So if we can see projects of the construction of solar power plants with a capacity of 7 gigawatt until 2030, within these, there are components over 20 million solar panels will be needed. 44.5 thousand inverters will be needed into these projects, and 1,540 transformers will be needed, and then a significant amount of the power cables and steel structures also will be needed only for the solar power. Regarding the wind farms of the 5 gigawatt capacity, we need 3,300 blades and 1,100 generators, 1,100 towers, and significant amount of transformers and power cables also will be needed in these projects. So this is also there are some other elements over here. Low and high voltage substations will be needed, or more than 200 pieces, and then cable and wire products 80,000 kilometers long, and isolators will be needed 9 million, over the 9 million pieces, and linear coupling fittings will be needed 9.9 million pieces. So there is one more. This slide will be very interesting and attractive to our friends, because Uzbekistan is creating remarkable market of the renewable energy. 10 days ago, June 10 this year, President of Uzbekistan held a meeting on the measures of the increased use of the renewable energy sources in the economy, population, and social spheres. Government is stepping up with a long-term guaranteed purchases to satisfy state needs in electricity by increasing share of the renewable energy in the national economy. So currently, population of Uzbekistan has additional demand for at least 2-3 billion kilowatt hours of the electricity. In the next 5 years, 2027, these demand will increase by another 10 billion kilowatt hours. So this is the most effective way to, in this situation, to increase use of the alternative energy. Within these targets and tasks, starting from this year, 1,326 government agencies and state buildings, 21,620 residential premises, 2,115 kindergartens, over the 1,000 schools, 2,071 clinics, 200 sanatoriums, and over the 1,000 neighborhoods must be equipped with solar panels and electric water boilers. Additionally, these projects, they will be renewable energy-based street lighting, and mini power stations also are included into this program. This program implies guaranteed purchase for the locally manufactured electrotechnic products such as PV solar panels, inverters, energy storage systems, wind power equipment, micro hydroelectric stations. So you can see in this slide these items which can be used. Can you see a point? Alex, do we have still time, or should I make it?
I think you should wrap it up, because I think I see some slides on the copper. Maybe that's maybe a little bit off topic. Just maybe if you can say a few words on the benefits and preferences, like the tax, land tax, and tax, and for the logistics, maybe that's also interesting. Just the last slides. And the
Okay.
labor force, you have some number on the energy and labor force. Just these last 3 slides, maybe let's the copper maybe.
Of course. Okay. But anyway, Uzbekistan is a very rich in terms of the copper. We have 44 million tons of copper resources, which has been estimated. So, and the copper quality is one of the highest. And then that also represents a lot of opportunity for the companies who are considering to come to Uzbekistan for to process copper and to manufacture out of the copper to high value added items. And then so government is creating a copper cluster in Uzbekistan. So this copper cluster zone has a lot of advantages and benefits. And then this is also regarding copper by legislature of Uzbekistan. Our association, Uzbek has been entrusted with tasks of distributing the copper resources, which is mined from Al Malik mining, the state mining company. We have to process it here in Uzbekistan, and we have a authority to distribute among the companies. So by the decree of the government was right now to develop the copper industry. The discounts have been announced for the companies who are locally manufacturing and downstreaming the copper raw materials. The 4% discount for the copper raw materials cathode from the LME price. And then there is an installment plan also has been introduced for these copper the companies, the cable or copper the related companies. They can just pay 25% of the price of the cathode, and then remaining 75% can be paid within the 90 days after receiving the raw material. And then there is a land tax exemption in this economic zone, and they will be provided property tax relief, and they will be also exempt from the water use taxation. So, and then there is also then there are benefits. There are other benefits. Subsidies has been introduced. They will be paying only 50% of the income and property tax for the companies who will be involved in these projects. So exemption from the payment of the custom duties for the imported raw materials and components and equipments which is not produced in Uzbekistan. And then VAT will be refunded within the 3 days, and 50% of the costs will be associated. 50% of the cost will be covered for the participation in international exhibitions and fairs for the companies who are working in this sector right now. So and this
maybe let's take the last slide so that we have time for Alkes. Can you just the last slide?
This is a cost saving. So, you're talking about cost saving, right?
I think that's an interesting one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one. Well, actually, JETRO, International Agency JETRO, have called Uzbekistan is low cost and high return manufacturing destination. It was 2020. If we can see, we can compare the cost savings of manufacturing in Uzbekistan to other countries, Hungary and Turkey. Electricity, we can save, it's only 4 cents compared to the 9 cents in Hungary, and 14 cents into Turkey. And then the so gas. So gas, natural gas usage and natural gas cost in manufacturing also quite low in Uzbekistan. It's only 1.09 mega cubic meters. So it is 10 times cheaper than in Hungary, which is 7 cents, and almost 5 times less than Turkey. And the water is also cost of the water is also very cheap in comparing with Hungary and Turkey. So if we pay here $0.07, it's almost 0.07 cents for cubic meters. It would be in Hungary it would be 8 cents, 80 cents, and in Turkey it would be 65 cents for cubic meters. And in terms of the labor resources also relatively cheaper than these mentioned countries in comparison. So,
thank you very much. This was Salahuddin. This was awesome. Let me now introduce the next speaker, Alkis. You have around now, let's say, 7 minutes, slightly reduced from the original 12 minutes. And I'm happy that you can make it and that you can also give a, so to speak, a neutral view. You're the country head of the European Reconstruction and Development Bank in Uzbekistan, and you can provide our entrepreneurs in the call here like a corroboration and a neutral view from a European perspective on the country, and also give some case studies. This is absolutely marvelous. Thank you very, very much for being with us, Alkis.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would like to say that the previous speakers have really shared with us inspiring inputs, and I would be really surprised if suppose that we stop the seminar here. There is not enough interest already generated by our audience to come and visit this country. Now I would like to ask the possibility to share my screen, as I would be very briefly, I can do 2-3 minutes presentation, because a lot of the things I wanted to present have been already let's say discussed. And let me see, so how can I do that? Right. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, it's great, but you can go to the presentation mode if you.
Yes, we see it. Presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fine.
Super.
So it shows a little bit strange. I will be looking that direction, but I'm looking at you in the eye. So I will skip the introduction to EBRD. I will go on this slide just to take the relay from the previous speakers and say they have all painted, let's say, a positive, upbeat picture for Uzbekistan. And we cannot not acknowledge, very rightly so they have done, as you see here on the slide on the right-hand side, Uzbekistan is now the 5th largest country of operation for the EBRD. We invest in 38 countries, and Uzbekistan is the 5th largest one in terms of how much taxpayers' money from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development has been invested and committed into Uzbekistan. And this is an indication of our response to the country's reform pace and the opportunities presents. So this slide is a very busy one. Just to remind everyone, we are a lender, and the slides will be available. These slides pictures very briefly some basic terms and conditions on how one can be, let's say, applying and obtaining EBRD support in terms of financing for projects. Now, again, you will see, as previous speakers discussed, about the reforms process in Uzbekistan and the progress that has been accomplished in, especially in the last 5 years. You please observe this slide and the bar chart and the curve, the green curve that shows how much we have been able to invest and increase our investment on a year-by-year basis in various sectors. And you will see here on what we say 66% is sustainable infrastructure. A lot of it is in the energy sector, and a lot of this energy sector is in the renewables sector as well. You will probably be noticing that this was a slide also presented by Eric, but what Eric did not put, maybe we had agreed to this, was this green economy strategy in 2030. So Eric kept it for me to say a few of the things that already Eldor Jakob had mentioned, that under the green economy, as well as Mr. Sidikov, that under the green economy strategy of Uzbekistan, there is a decision for the country to install 12 gigawatts of renewables energy generation capacity in Uzbekistan, out of which the breakdown is 7 for solar and 5 for wind. Because we discussed, and you asked me to focus on energy sector and renewables more particular, the first case study I have here is one of the projects that Mr. Sidikov was telling before. He showed the map of Uzbekistan with 11 solar plants under construction. So this is one of them. Nurnovai is one that we are financing together with many other financing partners, but the beneficiary is Masdar, a global company from global rich company, very experienced company from the Emirates that is has been investing in this 100 megawatt solar power plant, which we are financing with 60 million. And for this one, I would say that this project is the first project under an auction that we have developed together with the government and the World Bank Group under its Scaling Solar Initiative. I open a parenthesis here. We have been proud of our engagement with the authorities in establishing a transparent legal framework for these competitive tenders to happen in solar and wind energy. So the second project is also one that was listed. It's a Total Eren sponsored project, which is again is a solar project to which we have invested a senior loan of 22 almost million euro. We have done also a lot of work in wind projects, but I have not listed one first for the brevity of time, but also because what we are working on is not yet a signed commitment by us. So there are no commercial secrets here. We are talking about 100 megawatt wind power projects in the Independent Republic of Karakalpakstan, which is on the northwestern part of Uzbekistan, and where we are financing with 56 million on a project finance basis, the design, the building, and the operating, and the commissioning of a wind power plant of 100 megawatts alongside aqua power. So just to also say that apart from the renewables energy, we are doing a lot with banks. So, I mean, these slides will be available, but you can see here that we are working with 9 banks and 1 leasing company trying to support SME development in the country through credit lines and trade facilitation limits. We are continuing working outside the banks directly with private sector clients. We are investing even equity in the supermarket. Indorama was mentioned by my colleague Eric. We've done an agribusiness and the chemical factory financing. And going on with public sector development, where we finance and we have a lot of procurement opportunities for maybe the audience of this web conference in our water and energy sector projects, where these companies can find procurement opportunities as shown in the next slide. If they just visit the EBRD site and press the link that is on the last line of this slide, they will be informed of what the EBRD is opening as investment opportunities for sales. So that's an attempt to be as brief as possible. And then thank you very much. I stop sharing here, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a million, Alkis. I think are there any immediate questions, first of all? Because otherwise, I think due to the time, we are already nearly up with the time. I think Jakob and I will now take maybe 3 minutes to tell you about our mission. I mean, how did we come to organize such a mission together with Dorit, who I would like to thank, together with Michael Kuhn from Swiss and Global Enterprise. I would like to thank to Roger Sonderegger from Swissmem and Carsten Böhler from ZERF. All these are wonderful partners, and we would like to thank them. Also, we organized this together with, of course, with EBRD, Alkis Draconis, with the Swiss Embassy, Mr. Wolensky, right? This
Mr. Ambassador Wolensky,
genau,
yes.
Who we have met last year intensively, together with Shavkat Mirziyoyev from the Ministry of Investment and Foreign Trade. This is also a partner of our mission, and of course with Uzbek and the Chamber of Commerce, who are powerful agencies and will be able to help all our delegates then once you're starting with your projects on the ground. So Jakob, what we are planning this 3 days. So this will be 3 very intensive days. Intensive days. And I think the idea is to leave Switzerland, or where you are on a Sunday evening, and be in Uzbekistan on Monday. We will then start on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 3 packed days. On the first day, we will meet with the government and like really get in contact, because in Uzbekistan it is very important to have such in contact with the government and with the agencies, because they are really helpful. And you saw all the plans that they have. And on the second day, then we will meet with we make a peer exchange. Also, we will meet with entrepreneurs, not only from Uzbekistan and Uzbek entrepreneurs. We will also meet with quite a number of European entrepreneurs that have already set up successfully in the country, and that you can then exchange with and learn from them how to do it best, what is the best practice. And last but not least, on a third day, we will talk about financing. Financing is, of course, is a powerful, is important. We will actually have already here on the call, we had Credit Suisse and Commerzbank. They are both very, very active in Uzbekistan. So that's great. We will meet them, and they will help you. We will meet also with local banks that can help you with financing. Of course, we will meet with EBRD, Alkis Draconis and his team, Asian Development, and some other, say, international players in the region, also with the government, with the Sovereign Wealth Fund in Uzbekistan. And of course, we will have with us also SURF, Carsten Böhler. They are supporting this mission, and they will give you the guarantees when you are exporting material and products from Switzerland to Uzbekistan. So they are a very important partner. Having said this, I think the time is already more or less up. Shall we wrap it up, or shall we just finish here?
I think we can wrap it up. So we would we are looking forward to take you to Uzbekistan, for you to be able to make contacts there with people like Uzbekistan, who will help you to get through all the practical things. Then with the government, who will take you through all the questions that you need to know to set up shop, and so you can really see what are the possibilities there.
Yeah.
In this upcoming,
like feasibility studies, market studies, they're all partners, legal and tax, of course, accountancy firms. All the contacts will be made available, and I think we would like to have you on board. And if there are no further questions, I think
thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Great to have you in this conference. So many joined us today. Thank you very much, of course, also on behalf of Alexander and me for those great panelists. It was really an honor and a pleasure to have you in this web conference.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot to
Tashkent.
Thanks a lot to everyone, wherever you are, and hope to see you soon.